Um, okay. Before we get to the screen that's on the screen, I just want to say a few things about spreadsheets, review some things, maybe touch on a few points that haven't come up before. First of all, I'm not an expert on this, neither is Vince, who's done a lot. We know what we know is about it. The main goal of these classes is to introduce some concepts so that people can navigate their way through the shoals of working with spreadsheets. Well, I'll review some basic operating procedures, some of which were touched on before. Maybe I have a little different approach. And that'll be the first part of the discussion. The second part is to introduce some of the more advanced functions, particularly queries. This will be kind of a bare bones introduction so that they help you familiarize yourself with a few basic concepts and functions. Actually, learning how to do these is really more akin to learning French. You will only learn them by doing them. And in the end, you'll have to do what I do and what Vince does. That is, when you can't figure something out on your own and don't spend a lot of time trying to do it, Google it or go to Sheets Help or YouTube to try and figure out how to do what you need to do. The other thing is to copy and modify something you know works that's similar to what you want to do. Okay, just a little bit of background again on spreadsheets. We use them every day, whether we know it or not. People are sometimes intimidated by the concept. My dad, for all my life, was drawing little spreadsheets to take a ruler and draw rows and columns and keep track of everything under the sun in his hand-drawn rows and columns. Calendars are a familiar and basic form of a spreadsheet, rows and columns for weeks and days. The software that runs your auto drip coffee maker and keeps track of the time is based really in the final analysis on a spreadsheet. Every web page is based on a spreadsheet, and so is every digital photograph. It's all rows and columns and reference points and values in the intersecting points. Almost all the spreadsheet programs are based, as Vince pointed out in his class, on a forerunner, Lotus 123. The basic programs today are Google Sheets, which I highly recommend because it's the most shareable, it's on the cloud, and links between existing workbooks are much clearer because they all have a distinct web address. Google Sheets saves everything when you close a file or make a significant adjustment. So you're never puzzled about what's been saved to the linked sheets, which was one thing that always drove me crazy with Excel when I was trying to save Excel sheets on a cloud-based platform. I never knew what was being saved where. Some other software platforms that are useful to know about. One is Calc, which is part of LibreOffice. LibreOffice is a good alternative to Microsoft Office. All its components are available on any operating platform, Apple, Windows, all the obscure ones that no one's ever heard of. It's open source software. Calc is its spreadsheet component and useful as a desktop application, which sometimes you need. Excel is the standard, but there are problems with Excel. One, you have to pay for it. Two, you have to save every operation, otherwise you lose it. And it doesn't work so well. It's online. It has an online version competing with Sheets, but it's not quite as good in my opinion. Then there's the Apple spreadsheet called Numbers, which frankly I think sucks. Because for one reason, it's not as readily translatable to all the other spreadsheet programs. I listed on the notes I sent out some of the file formats. I'm not going to review them here. It's all on paper. What I do want to do is review now some of the techniques for using spreadsheets. A number of years ago, there was an article in the New York Times about how most computer users were still using them as like typewriters. And I find that's, even though that was almost 20 years ago, I read that article, it's still true today. You have ways for computers to automate all kinds of things, including not having to retype things. So I want to show you some basic ways of using data. One thing is if you want to copy a series of numbers, here are a series of numbers by tens. To fill down, you can just grab on that little blue box and it'll add tens far down to every number. Now here we have a random sampling. Every number has 3 added to it, and you can do the same thing just by dragging on that. Now, if you hold Control down, it'll just replicate that series. So you get 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30. Same thing here. You hold Control down while dragging down, just replicates that series in the same order. Now over here, I've added what's in column A with what's in column B, and that's what's there. Now, if we drag all this down, you see it's repeated the sequences and added them all together. One really handy function is the sum function. I use it all the time. And if you look up here in the formula bar, the formula is equals sum, and then it highlights where it's getting the sum from. It's heading column 1, column 2, column 3, or column A, B, and C. And the answer is 50. Now, if you change this one to 6, it'll change it to 52 because you have this, so the 6 becomes twice what it was. So sum is a very basic feature. There's another way to do sums. You can write the formulas I've done there, or you can highlight on a column and hit this icon here, the function icon, which shows you all the functions available in Sheets, which I'm not going to go into most of them. Hit sum and enter, and it's summed that column. you can do the same thing, highlight a row, hit the sum button, hit enter, and it's summed it going that way. Now, one thing that's handy, especially if you're writing notes about something and there's a calculation involved in the string of text, you can do what's called concatenate. Concatenation is a series of interconnected things or events, the actions of linking things together in a series. So this line of text here is linked to this sum. So you have that number 50. And it's, okay, I wrote a silly little thing here about a little silly little text. But what it is, the text is in quotes. The average number of hairballs per cat per year is, and that's in quotes. Then I put an ampersand, which is a symbol for telling the program to concatenate it with something else. And I put double quotes with a space in between to indicate a space between the line of text and the number. And then another ampersand and a link to this cell E3 with that number 50 in it. So the average number of hairballs per cat per year is 50. Now if I change this to 6, you see it's changed this to 52 because it's linked to that cell. Or if I changed it to 9, suddenly it'd be 58. Okay, so let's get back to repeating or filling series of numbers in columns. Remember, if we drag this down, it continues adding 2 to every operation, or if we hit the control key, just repeats it. So dates are a little bit different. If I hit the control key on this series of dates, it'll repeat that series. If I don't hit control, just do it straight up, it repeats the dates in line. If I select this date, it still adds the next day to it going down, even though I haven't selected the dates above it. But if I hit the control key, then I can get the same date over and over again. That's important. Sometimes you want the same date repeated often in a spreadsheet, and you just have to remember to use control. Okay, now I want to show you some other formulas. This is simple math. The answer is -4. Every formula, by the way, begins with an equal sign. Doesn't end with an equal sign, it begins with the equal sign. So this is simple math. 2 minus 6 is -4. There's another way to do this, and that's to use a function, the minus function, which you put logical arguments in parentheses behind the function name. The function name is minus. You put 2 and 6. That's a logical argument. 2 comma 6. And it returns the same answer as the simple math expression 2 minus 6. Now what happens if you don't want a negative number in the answer, which sometimes happens? You're subtracting one thing from another, but you don't want it to show up as a negative number because you want to add them, for some reason you want to add the number somewhere else. And I do this regularly. Then you use the ABS function, absolute function. So 6 from 2 is 4 as an absolute number. We're getting into arithmetic here, I know, and it may be confusing. Okay, so those are some of the functions I wanted to introduce here on the basic side. Um, so next, I want to introduce copy and paste in a different way. And we're going to go to this special worksheet I've developed. These are real numbers from June, from the last few days that I've copied from Square, downloaded from Square and copied into this worksheet. The only purpose of this worksheet is to reorganize the data so I can use it somewhere else. So I pasted this data from a file I downloaded from Square in here. And it's got the date first and a whole bunch of columns of data. That's called transaction data. Then there's another thing I downloaded from Square, which is item details. It details all the sales. Again, starts with date, time, and a bunch of other columns which detail other information. Transaction data just records each transaction, no matter how many items are in the transaction. Item details record each item individually. Both files have a column that's called transaction ID. In this case, the transaction ID is in column N. And in this case, the transaction ID is column V. Now, to make this data useful to me, I have to synchronize the data in both spreadsheets with each other. And I need to do that by putting that transaction ID in column A. So I've written a query, which is what's in this transaction active sheet. One thing about queries that I should point out before I go on, you cannot edit anything on a query sheet. You have to edit on the original sheet if you need to make some changes or clarification. I'll show you what happens. Let's say I look at this and I say, oh, that's the wrong price. That should have been $4.75. So I put that in there and see what happens. It wipes out the entire sheet of data. So I hit Control Z and retrieve the data. Say, okay, my bad. I have to go back to transaction data and correct that. Okay, so
Wait, can you just kind of define query?
Yes, I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
The purpose of a query is to select, organize, and extract specific information in a way that's useful to you. So basically, you're asking a question and using it to reorganize the data. And this is the beginning step of this, is reorganizing the data so that I can synchronize the data from these two sheets and get the answers I want further down the line. So what I've done is, remember I showed you that in the transaction data, the transaction ID was in column V. So I told it to select column V, then every other column. It may not have to select every other column, but you never know when it's becoming useful. So I do. And the beginning part of this expression, it tells the query, tells the sheet to look in the transaction data sheet. That's in yellow or orange, followed by an exclamation point, starting at cell A1 and going through cell A2 to infinity, AT to infinity. Okay, so now if we go all the way over, Let's see. Okay. So it's saying select all these columns, data in all these columns. And then it says where V is not blank, greater or less than a blank cell. That's what the two opposing chevrons are, and then the two single quotes with nothing between them. So it's selecting all those columns where column V is not blank. And then it's ordering the data in ascending order by B. Because here's one other thing this does. The data I download from Square has the newest date at the top, and I want the newest date at the bottom. So it's reorganizing how the data is displayed. The same thing is done in this item detail. Basically the same query, only it's looking on a different sheet. Then I'll take all this data and copy it. But if I copy it somewhere, it's still going to be copying query data, and I can't edit it or do anything. It'll have the same problem no matter where I copy it to, if I just do a basic copy. So I'll copy it, and I'm just going to do this at the bottom of I think this will work. Go down here below, and instead of just hit Control C to copy it, you could hit Edit, Copy. I'm going to hit Edit, Paste Special, Values Only. So it's no longer tied to the original data. I can edit, call it 325, and it won't disappear. So this Paste Special is really a very valuable tool for copying data from a query to some other place, and it's valuable. It's one of the features I use an awful lot, Paste Values Special. And it's got a hotkey, Control-Shift-V or Command-Shift-V if you're using Apple. There are other ways you can use Paste Special. I won't get into a lot of these right now. Values Only is the one I use the most. Okay, now we're going to go to look at, I've taken that data off the worksheet. This is May's worksheet, not June's, or a copy of May's. I've pasted it special, so it's basically unlinked dead data at this point. So I can edit it, do whatever I want, and then it's linked to other queries. For example, I want to use these two sheets as an example of how I use it. One is the dues. This is another query I've written. It's more limited. It looks on the transaction sheet at the beginning. Remember the transaction sheet here. Looks on the transaction sheet. Where was that? Just for certain columns, transaction ID, the customer name. See, I need the transaction ID in every one of these sheets so I can figure it out where it comes from. The date, the gross amount. The other tender number is the check number. Fees are credit card fees, Karen paid by credit card, and then net total, how much went into our books. This note I made to myself, it really is irrelevant at this point. Something I had problems with in the beginning. Now I've done the friends similar to that, I have a query that, oh, I should go back. This query looks for anything that has member due in the title, in the title of the transaction, member dues, which is one of the columns in, yeah, it's the AD column where it records what the item is. And that percentage sign before and after just indicates that if there's some random number or code before or after, it'll still pick it up. Okay, so done a similar thing with friend membership. In this case, we're looking on the item details column, item details spreadsheet. And the reason I look for friends on a different spreadsheet or worksheet is because often the friends will include other things with their dues payments. Usually members don't. They'll make a donation or whatever. And all I'm interested in getting here is their dues payments. Okay, so, and it's looking in column F on the item details page. And it's ordering by the date. Yeah.
So I don't see where it's looking. Okay, you've made this sheet and then you tell it to go to one of the other tabs down here, and it knows to go to that tab, whatever.
You see the letter, you see the words in orange or yellow?
Oh.
That's the name of the other sheet, and it tells it what cells to look in.
Okay. Well, we'll jump over to another sheet and go looking.
Yeah, the name of the tab followed by an exclamation point tells us to look in that sheet.
And it has to be in orange, and you have to
It turns it in orange automatically.
Okay.
Once it recognizes it as a sheet, it appears orange. And the rest of it will, once you put the quotation marks around the rest of it, it'll turn green. And when you're looking for a particular item, you have to have double quotes. Otherwise, it will just think if it's a single quote, it just thinks it's the end of the expression.
Okay, and then how did you learn, like, how to make all those, formulas? Are they somewhere in, like, sheet help?
Yeah, I looked it up at some point. I mean, I've been doing it for a few years, so now I just look at formulas I know that worked and copy them. Once in a while, if I'm starting a new query, I do have to look at the syntax again, especially if I'm doing something different. Now, this has a limited number of items, limited number of columns it's copying. It only goes out to here. So this has gotten, these columns are gotten with a different, with different formulas. A vertical lookup formula. And in this case, there's an if error formula precedes it, because if it's blank, we want it to return a 0. So in this case, the error was that there was no fee paid in this because it was paid by check or cash in that case. If error, and then absolute, so we get a positive amount, whether if there's anything paid at all or not. Now remember, over here, every column uses its letter, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. In vertical lookup, it's looking in column 21 because it knows there are no rows it's looking. The only row it's looking in is the row with this ID. Okay, well, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J,
Oh, okay.
A, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U. Column U is 21.
Okay.
Vertical lookup is only looking in columns, and it only wants the numerical equivalent. So this is one of the few exceptions to the rule of the letter in the columns. And that's just because this particular function doesn't care about rows. It only cares about columns, what's in vertical columns. I know it's a little confusing, but it took me a while to figure that out, so I'm pointing that out now. Okay, so there's one other function that I haven't talked about, I want to talk about, and that's count. There's several different counting functions. There's count, count A, count X, and a couple other counts. I forget what all of them are. I only use count or count A. This particular example, I use the formulas count A. It's this one, of course, since it's a formula to work, it has to have an equal sign at the beginning. The 74 is the number of pieces I've entered in Studio B shows in, what, 7 years? 74. So that's based on this formula, count A from here to here, C3 to E45. Now, these count formulas allow you to have up to 120 arguments. So I'll just give you a basic example of an argument. This one here, if I click on this, you can see it's counting everything in the yellow area, right? So I could count all these fake entries I put over here to the side by extending that out to G45. Then I get 79. But I don't want to count the things in column F, in fake entries number 1. I only want to count the things in title 1, title 2, title 3, and fake entries 2. So here's where 2 logical arguments come to play. So this count A is, I'm pointing this out because it helps to understand how logical arguments work in other formulas. So in this case, the primary category it's looking in is this. And then secondarily, it's looking in to count these items, not even all of column G, but just these cells that are highlighted in purple. So if I put something up here, it doesn't change the count because it's not part of what I told it to count. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I showed you a little bit. We'll go back to this little bit about how to link from one spreadsheet to another. We'll go to our report form and well, let's go to the gallery form because it's a query that has linked to the items detail formula. I don't know why it hasn't turned orange. The formula is good otherwise. So it's looking for several different things. This is all the things that were sold in the gallery. And then our monthly report looks for whatever was sold in that gallery. It looks to a certain cell where the total was on the gallery sheet. It's just equal the name of the sheet followed by an exclamation and the cell address. Now down here, it's looking at a cell from last month's report. So I had to link it to another spreadsheet. I did that with import range, then gave it the address of the web address of the other spreadsheet, which is that, which I got simply by opening the spreadsheet. This is the address of this sheet that we have opened. Again, this is something you probably have to look up and learn by doing or whatever. And it tells you which spreadsheet, which Google workbook to look in by web address, and then which tab in that workbook, which is report, exclamation, and then cell C25. Oh yeah, I do need to tell you about this because there's another function here. Wait a minute, what's the difference? Yeah, unmute.
Import and query. What's the difference if you're just looking for a number in a previous spreadsheet? What's the difference between import and query?
Okay, query looks into it in a spreadsheet that's got a lot of data and sorts it and organizes it and sifts out a bunch of all the information you want. In this case, you're only looking for the information in one cell on another spreadsheet, which is cell C25, which is basically this cell on that previous sheet, only it's C24 on this sheet because there's not as many cells occupied above it. So it's the whole point of this is it's referencing data on another spreadsheet. Okay, so let's look at this, how the sales are tallied. Okay, let's go to, every member has a letter code. You've probably seen it somewhere in the SKU number for your pieces. We'll look at Helen's. Now Helen is HRE, and there's an HRE sheet, which has all the sales she had in May, which is organized with a query from item details. So we go back here. So now this cell is trying to determine how much she sold in the gallery. So the formula here is it's looking for, it's an indirect formula. It's looking for the letters, a tab with the letters in this cell, A12. And remember the ampersand is a concatenation. It's looking for a tab that has these letters and then an exclamation and then the cell address of E2, which we go to Helen's sheet. Cell E2 is how much she sold in the gallery. I know this is a lot to absorb, but so each one of these cells is linked to some block, but based on an indirect reference to whatever's in this cell. Then this column here adds up it doesn't add it across here, it adds it from a place on Helen's sheet that's already added it. So we're not duplicating. It's again an indirect thing. Total payout is indicated on her sheet, and then again here. And then this is the check number, which I manually entered. Now, this turns green when there's a value in here. This is a tool I've developed so that I can see who to write checks to and don't miss anyone. And I use conditional formatting so that when the value of any cell in this column between C3 and C48 is greater than 0, see the greater than and 0, it turns green. If it's 0, it just stays white. Then this cell here turns green when I put the check number in, so I know I've written them a check. And here, the peculiar thing of this is I could, if I write B3 to B46, it changes it to this, B3, B8, B10, B12. It just changes it to wherever there's a value in the C column automatically. But it's also conditional formatting. This is just a helpful tool. I use conditional formatting to find duplicates and to give me a lot of information so that at a glance, I know that I'm completing various tasks or have looked in the proper places. Or one thing I didn't point out, which I should have earlier on, is hidden rows. Oh, actually, there's a place I want to show you this, which is not this. I want to show you Karen Weber. Okay. Karen Weber, look at the gift shop. Her payout, or she sold $94 worth of things in the gift shop in May. But what shows up here is $5 worth of cards. And that's because you see the row number, you have a 17 and a 23. There are a bunch of hidden cells, hidden rows. So we're going to unhide them by going unhide. And suddenly all this other stuff that's added up to $94 appears. It was there all the time, it's just hidden. There's another thing I want to point out. See how this goes, everything disappears above it. What happens if we want these two rows to stay there whenever? We'll just go to insert, not insert, view. View freeze, two rows. So now those two rows will always stay there and we can move that up and down. Very useful in spreadsheets so you know what's in, what you're actually looking at in the different columns. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about, and that's only because it was requested, is how to do graphs. Okay. Here's a graph. I'm going to copy this data here. Better copy. Got to copy the identifiers too at the top. And we'll make a new sheet. And I'm going to paste special. Oops. I don't know what I copied there. Okay, so it's copied all this data. Let me get rid of that footnote. So now I want to make a chart. So I'll just select all that data, insert chart. And then it gives me all kinds of design options. I want a bar chart. So that shows me the difference between each year, or I could do it different ways, but that gives you an idea. There are a lot of different choices in how you do these, but it's really a simple matter of just telling it to insert data into a chart and then customizing it the way you want it. Pretty simple. Okay, questions?
I can think of all kinds of ways I could use this on my current records. I have a very simple Excel sheet with no queries or anything, but like, for example, to do the taxes, income, the sales taxes, for example, I think I could query or import, query the totals from each of those months. And instead of making a little piece of paper off to the side where I add up each month, I'll let Excel do it. I'll let my sheets do it.
Oh yeah, let me just show you this sales taxes here. They are from calculated by Square. They're on the transaction sheet in a column called what the hell is it called? It's called taxes or something like that. Anyway, I just referenced the, see on this sheet, I've got totals way at the bottom. It never overwrites these. And just reference that on the report each month. The only thing I have to do then is import, not only reference what's in this month, but also the previous 2 months in the calendar in the quarter, so that at the end of the quarter I know what the total is. It's very easy to do with this.
Not sure I'll be able to do it, but I'm going to try.
Well, I would move everything to sheets because queries in Excel.
Everything is on sheets. I don't use.
Yeah, queries in Excel are very difficult.
All on sheets. Absolutely. Don't really use Excel.
At least in my opinion. I spent hours looking at these videos for Excel and I couldn't figure them out.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Vince, anything to say? Unmute.
Muted. I was muted. No, I don't think so. First of all, you did a great job. One of the things, Martha, you asked at first you asked what the difference was between a query and an import range, and I think this is true. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. And you can import just individual cells or ranges from another spreadsheet. First of all, queries only work within the sheets, the individual tabs in a single spreadsheet. You can't query into another entirely different spreadsheet. The import range will go to another entirely different spreadsheet. But the query function has that where clause, which is very powerful as far as filtering out the information that you want to appear. You only, you want to show these particular columns where something is true, where the value of one column equals a certain value, or where the value of two columns are equal to each other, or something like that. And the where clause in the query is what gives it a lot of its power.
Exactly, because let's go back to Karen Weber's sheet here. So it's only querying data on the item details sheet where her initials appeared, or her official initials appeared, and either the prefix 1 or 7. And here it's only looking for the prefix 2 with her initials. And then any SKU number after that. So the where, or in this case, it's like, not where I is like that, or
well, the where clause, but the like just gives you, it doesn't have to be exact. It's like something, and yeah.
Where will give you everything that's approximating it.
And it'll look in every column until it finds that?
No, it's only looking in column I, in this case.
Oh.
I is like this, or I is like that. This is a where expression, where I is like,
or
I is like this.
I thought it was like, I like chocolate pudding.
I think you got something else on your mind.
Well, that's what it looks like. I couldn't figure it out. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a logical.
Not in column I. The one KWE is in column A.
Aha. Okay. Well, look at the logical argument. Select column I, column F. That's column I on that sheet, the item detail sheet.
The column names go back to the original sheet.
Right.
Ordering, and it's ordering it in the order I want it, not the order it wants it.
Wow.
So it's columns I, F, K. You know, it took a little while to figure this out, but once I figured it out, then I could copy this formula and just change the initials.
Equals query, item details. And the bang is the exclamation point is the tab number.
Yeah.
It identifies this as the tab number. A1 through X, the whole thing, comma, select IFKW where I is like 1 KWE. For some reason, a percentage point. What was the percentage thing for?
That's a wild card, so it can be any number.
Okay.
Or anything after KWE. It's just got to have those 4 digits in
And
the
you have to
beginning.
have double quotes or 1 like 7. That's the gallery. KWE, any number. And order by K. Order by K. K
Okay.
in the other spreadsheet.
IFK, order by K is ordering by the price. W is the name of the customer.
That in the other spreadsheet, in the other tab.
Yeah. Now, I don't really know why I ordered it by K. I just did.
All right, and that was that give us this customer name. So what it came up with was it brought up the item number. It brought them along for extra credit.
You mean the SKU number?
No, like the next column here, the B column. Oh, those were the other columns, the IFK.
I is the SKU number.
Yeah, okay.
F is the item name.
Okay.
K is the price, and W is the customer name.
So those were the, all right. So those became A, B, C, D in your new little thing here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions?
Mary, no, ask something.
No, I understand what's happening, and I understand, you know, I think the part that I don't understand is like, I understand the selecting from the columns and the rows, but then like my question is, how would I know, to use the percentage symbol, or, you know what I mean? When do you use that and how do you use that? That's the part that I won't understand, but I understand what's happening. You're taking, on this sheet, you've taken certain information from the more expanded sheet that has all this information and just condensing it down to, 3 things. So I understand, I understand that. But so, and I'm not at that level. I use Excel spreadsheet, but I'm not at this level of I'm still kind of doing it manually, as you say, Jay. But this is interesting. And I was talking to Matt about it tonight, and he told me he knows how to use all this. So I know that when I start exploring it, I have a resource to go to. So, but anyway, I just saw something, Jay. Did I sell something in June? I saw my name. Did I sell something in June? I saw my name there.
It was May he showed.
This is May.
No. Okay, but you did show a June one, because I think I saw a print that sold.
Oh,
you get a little preview, huh?
Yeah. Divergent.
Bonus.
Diverging. Yes. Was that June?
Yeah, you did sell something.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw. That's good. Nothing like selling.
Yeah, you need to make big ones of those, by the way, Mary.
I have big one. You mean big prints? I have big paintings.
No, big original watercolors of your gorgeous horizon lines.
I do. The largest I have is 36 by 36.
Okay, that's big. That's big.
Yeah, and the average size is 9 by 22.
Yeah,
I have a few of them. So
okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I do. But thank you for saying that.
Yeah, that was a busy day Saturday. I made a few boo-boos, but you weren't one of my boo-boos.
Oh, good. That's great. So that's good. I thought I saw that. So that was June. So good. No, but this is great. No, I mean, I like using Excel a lot, and it's really helped me. It really helps keep track of like what's happening, where your work is, what you're doing with it, prices, that kind of thing. And I really like it. And this sort of, for me, it's the next level, and it'll take some exploring to do that.
Queries work differently in Excel than they do in Sheets.
Yeah. I have a question, Jay. If I have all my information in Excel, is there any way I can transfer it into Sheets without having to manually like copy and paste or type it?
You upload your Excel file to Sheets.
Okay.
And then you can just tell it to open it in Sheets and save it in Sheets. And then you can delete the Excel file that you uploaded.
Okay. Okay.
You know how to do that? Go back to a basic drive and show her where to, you know how to do that, Mary?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Because if you save it as a Sheets file, it doesn't count against your data, but an Excel file will. So you want to get rid of the Excel file so it doesn't count against your data.
Okay.
If your spreadsheet is a little bit complicated, just double check. Make sure that it didn't lose anything in the translation from Excel to Sheets.
I usually, yeah. If I do anything like that, I usually back it up. Actually, I back everything up on an external hard drive anyway. So I've had
the thing that can mess you up is the formulas won't work right between the two.
Okay.
Some of them will, but queries won't work right going back and forth. They write them very differently.
But if she doesn't have queries yet, then it's not a problem. Then she can just start her queries and
use Sheets for queries because Excel is an abomination as far as I'm concerned when it comes to writing.
Actually, Matt just created an Excel sheet for me for the View gallery where it automatically puts in all the information like the date, the show goes up, the dates come down, when it's due. He actually just made that for me, but I actually haven't used it yet. It just automatically puts all that information in so that people will be able to go and look, at the whole spreadsheet of when, you know what I mean? Not just individually, but as a group, you can just go and look at that. Kind of like the sheets you have for the, the gallery schedule and stuff like that.
Awesome.
But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, see if you can put that on Sheets too, so that it's available.
In Google. Yeah, in the Google Drive.
To share things in Google, that's one of the big advantages of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can limit permissions too. So some people can just view it, some people can comment but not change anything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I know, yeah. So.
All right, are we about?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Yes, thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna stop recording.
All right.
Oh.